Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campia, and this is a companion video. Now, every day on the John Campia Show on an open mic, we take live questions, but often we don't have time to get around to all those live questions. So what I do is I take those questions we didn't have time for, I bring them together, and we do these companion videos. Now, I'm gonna let you know, we are way behind on companion videos because, you know, I didn't do a lot of recording when I was at Comic-Con. I had some oral surgery on Tuesday. You can probably still tell I'm not talking so great. I'm off the hydrocodone though because that stuff was making me loopy. A very effective painkiller, but it's making me loopy. So you can still tell my swelling's gone down a bit. I thought I felt good enough that I could do a companion video here today. So, gonna let you know, we're not gonna get to all the backed up companion videos in this video, but we're gonna try to take a good chunk out of them. So let's get things started with this. The first question we're getting caught up on comes to us from Manuel Castro, who writes, Scarlett Johansson in tight black leather, count me in every time. This comes from a conversation we were having the other day on the show about how, you know, look, as much as I love both the characters of like a Hawkeye and a Black Widow, I love both of those characters, and I think they're incredibly valuable to the MCU. I just prefer them as supporting characters. I'm honestly I have very little interest to no interest in seeing standalone movies of either Black Widow or like a Hawkeye. I think they're fabulous as connective tissue throughout the MCU. I think they're great in supporting roles. I just have very little interest. But as Manuel Castro points out, it's tough saying no to Scarlett Johansson type black leather. I will concede that point to you, sir. I will concede that point to you. All right, Ben Rayner writes, Hawkeye already has a standalone movie. It's called Tag. He's really badass in it. It is crazy because, first of all, I was talking for a couple of weeks about Tag. Charming, solid little movie. Like, not one of these movies is going to be in the top 15 of the year or anything like that, but it's a charming, solid little film that I had a very good time watching, and I think if you give it a shot, you'll have a good time watching it too. But it is kind of crazy how much he does kind of act like Hawkeye in it. Not just like personality-wise, and there is a lot of Hawkeye personality in him, but he's got all the physical skills of Hawkeye. He's basically Hawkeye in the movie. So, but you know what? It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel cheesy. It felt like it worked for the movie. It really did. And so in that context, it worked just fine for me. All right, next question up comes to us from Jed Jensen, who writes, do you think Thanos will be remembered in the years to come as a villain on the same level as Vader, Hans Gruber, Hannibal Lecter, or the Joker? Well, absolutely not to Vader and Hans Gruber. Those are the two greatest film on-screen villains of all time. There is an X factor to both of them that you can't formulate out. You know, you can't say, well, Hans Gruber was just a great villain because of his accent. No, you can't say, oh, Vader was just a great villain because he's all this black armor and everything. No, there was an X factor to both of those characters that you can't just formulate out and replicate. And a lot of filmmakers have tried over the years to formulate and replicate the brilliance of on-screen villains like Vader or Hans Gruber. I don't think you're going to see that here. But I do think that we could 5-10 years from now, and it's very difficult to try to give any kind of prognostication about where we are going to see movies or TV shows or characters 5 or 10 years from now. How will we look at these movies or characters 5 to 10 years from now? It's very difficult to do that in the moment. And usually whenever we try, we're wrong. But I can see, I'm not saying you will, but I can see Thanos being seen on the same level as Joker. Now, whenever I talk about comparing Thanos to Joker, I get some people upset at me saying, how can you dare compare the performance of Heath Ledger, who is the live action actor, to that of, you know, James Brolin, who is CGI and did motion capture? How dare you compare this? I'm not comparing the performances. I'm comparing the character. Yes, performance is a part of it. How well it's written, the character's motivations, how the character comes off the screen. There's like a dozen different elements that go into the overall character. And performance is one of those major elements, yes, but it's not the only one. So when I suggest that Thanos may be as good, maybe even better, than the Joker character from The Dark Knight, I am not specifically saying James Brolin did a better job than Heath Ledger. I'm not necessarily saying that. Because that's just one element. There's a lot of different elements. And I think there are several ways of... I think Thanos is a better written character. I do. I think Thanos is a better written character. And I think there are some other advantages Thanos has over Joker from The Dark Knight. I believe there are advantages the Joker from The Dark Knight has over Thanos, the Heath Ledger performance being one of those things. So right now, I can see that. I can see 10 years from now, we're talking about maybe Heath Ledger's Joker and Thanos as the two greatest comic book villains maybe ever. I can see that conversation happening. Whether or not it will, it's impossible to say at this point. The one drawback that Thanos also has when you're trying to compare it to Star Wars, Die Hard, or The Dark Knight is I believe all three of those movies, Star Wars, Die Hard, The Dark Knight, were all better movies than Infinity War. I like Infinity, don't get me wrong, Campia said he doesn't like Infinity. No, I love Infinity War. I think it's great. But, you know, to me, it's not a top 3 MCU movie. I think it's excellent. I liked it very, very much. But I don't think it's a top 3 MCU movie. And I don't think it's on the same level as a Star Wars, as a Die Hard, or as a Dark Knight. So that's another kind of thing working against it. We tend to give a little bit more credence to these individual characters the better movie that they're in. Maybe that's fair, maybe that's not fair. But it is kind of how we tend to look at things. So that will be working against Thanos, I believe. I mean, there are some of you out there probably who think that Infinity War is the greatest film of all time. More power to you. That's awesome if you do. All film's subjective. But I don't think, as a movie, Infinity War is going to be looked at the same way The Dark Knight was. I don't think, like 10 years from now, I don't think Infinity War will be looked at on the same level as a Die Hard. And I certainly don't think Infinity War is going to be looked at on the same level of the original Star Wars. But Thanos is a damn great character. So yeah, I'll go out on a limb and say I do believe, although this is pure speculation, who knows what we're going to think 5, 10 years from now. But right now, I can see a possibility that we are talking about Thanos and Joker as the de facto two greatest villains on par with each other. Maybe one's a little bit better than the other. Maybe it's Thanos, maybe it's the Joker, I don't know. But I can see that happening. Will it? Ask us all again in about 10 years. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. All right, Zaya writes, what's the better Tarantino performance? DiCaprio in Django Unchained, Christoph Waltz in Inglorious Basterds, or Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction? That's easy for me. It's Christoph Waltz in Inglorious Basterds. Christoph Waltz. Out of the three, only one of them's won an Academy Award. That doesn't mean that character or that performance was better. I'm just saying, if you want some anecdotal stuff, one of those won an Academy Award, and it was Christoph Waltz. Samuel L. Jackson, I believe, was nominated for his performance in Pulp Fiction, and Samuel L. Jackson is awesome in Pulp Fiction. By the way, Samuel L. Jackson is... Look, I'm not saying it is. I think there's an argument to be made that Samuel L. Jackson's performance in Django Unchained was even better than his performance in Pulp Fiction. I mean, he was masterful in both. Make no mistake. He was great in both. But I think you could even have an argument that maybe Samuel L. Jackson in Django Unchained might even have a little bit of a leg up over his Pulp Fiction performance. Whatever, that's up for you guys to decide. But for me, Hans Lada in Inglorious Basterds, if I'm remembering the character's name right. My goodness. See, that's a character that I could put in a conversation maybe with Hans Gruber. Like that, first, just that opening scene of Inglorious Basterds with Christoph Waltz going to that family's house. That's chilling. Like pure chilling. It's unbelievable. I love that character. So, hey, DiCaprio in Django was fantastic. Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction, obviously fantastic. But to me, I'm going to give the edge to Christoph Waltz in Inglorious Basterds. That's just kind of the way I see it. I'm sure many of you guys see it differently, which is awesome. But the way I see it is Christoph Waltz. All right, let's move on to the next one. Murray Reich writes, I heard that Fallen Kingdom had an after credits scene, and I'm wondering if it was a good one. I'll be honest with you, I never stayed for the after credits. I remember it was one of those situations where I had to go see a screening at a theater called the AMC Century City. Now, a lot of screenings are held at the AMC Century City. That's a good hour drive away from me. Through brutal Santa Monica traffic. Like, brutal traffic. And I almost didn't go, but it was Jurassic World. It was going to be one of the biggest films of the year, so I decided to go. But it's a pain in the ass to get there. It's a pain in the ass to park there. And it's a pain in the ass to get out. And I remember, I had my buddy Ryan was with me. And we were on a bit of a clock, too, because I had a show I had to do back home. And I remember the end credits hit, and I liked Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I had a good time with it. But as soon as the credits started to roll, boom, we beelined it out of there. Because we were facing a long drive home. Long drive when you're talking about going to a movie or not. It's a long drive. You don't normally drive an hour to go see a movie. So we had a long drive home. I was on a clock because I had an open mic show to do that day. So we had to get going. So honestly, to this day, I do not know the answer about Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and whether or not there was a post-credit scene. Honestly, I have no idea. If you guys know, jump into the comments section, answer Murray's question for him. That'd be great if you could. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Calvin Blackdeer, who writes, "Hey, John, enjoy your show so much." Thank you so much, Calvin. That I subscribed to your channel today. Keep up the good work. By the way, this is my first super chat. Well, thank you so much, Calvin. I appreciate I appreciate the fact that you would just send that in to be nice. Thank you, man. That's really nice of you. Der Wunderbar writes, there you go. I just watched Mud. I love that TOS. Sorry, guys. My mouth is still tender. I just watched Mud. I love that Trek Original Series episode. That is a great episode. And, by the way, in Star Trek Discovery, the new Star Trek show on CBS All Access, which I trash-talked for a year, and then I started watching, I'm like, damn, this show's actually pretty good. I like this show very much. But anyway, in the first season, I can't remember how many episodes there were, 13 or something, 12, whatever. But one of the episodes of Star Trek Discovery reintroduced us to Mud. This time, played by Rainn Wilson, who played Dwight Schrute on The Office. And it was great. And he does a great job playing Mud. And you're right, that episode from the original series, one of the all-time classic Star Trek episodes. Like, it's up there for me with the Khan episode. It's up there for me with the Troubles with Tribbles episode. It just ranks right up there. That Mud episode is great. And it was really cool watching Discovery and seeing them bring the Mud character into this new incarnation of Star Trek as well. It worked a lot for me, so I enjoyed it. Der Wunderbar follows it up with, "Everybody loves Raymond." Or do they? It's funny. We were talking about the other day. Everybody Loves Raymond is one of the all-time most successful sitcoms ever. Easily in the top 10 as far as success goes. Ran a long time, had high ratings. It was great. By the way, Ray Romano in The Big Sick, awesome. If you haven't seen The Big Sick with Kumail Nanjiani, you got to watch it. It was one of the best films of last year. And Ray Romano is in it playing his would-be father-in-law. And he's wonderful in it. Just awesome in it. I got to admit, I wasn't a huge fan of Everybody Loves Raymond, though. And now, to be fair, I didn't watch a whole hell of a lot of the episodes. I only watched a few of the episodes. And I didn't dislike it, but it never hooked me. And you remember, there's a lot of TV to watch around that era. So I never got into it a lot. So yeah, I mean, maybe Everybody Loved Raymond, maybe not. Let's see. Jeff Jones writes, "From Thursday, in reference to the Star Wars hater trolls, you said knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing, cousin-humping through backs." I'm not sure what you mean by that. "God, you had me laughing so damn hard," and I agree. Well, yes, but let's be clear. Let's be clear. For somebody who might be watching this video, and this is the first time you watch me, let me be clear, and I try to preface this every single time. When I refer to the mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging cousin humpers, what I am not referring to is people who don't like Star Wars, or particularly the Last Jedi, because they don't like it. I'm not referring to those people. That's totally fine. Star Trek The Last Jedi is a movie. That means some people are going to like it and some people aren't. Some people may love it beyond belief. Some people may hate it beyond belief. That's part of being a film fan. Nothing wrong with that. I have no problems with anybody who hates it. Very good friend, a couple of really good friends of mine, really don't like The Last Jedi. And we're able to talk and jab and go back and forth and have some good discussion, debate on it. It's a lot of fun. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm specifically referring to when I talk about the mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging, cousin-humping, wrong side of history losers is those people who decide to use as an excuse and as a platform to hate on The Last Jedi, the fact that they got black people in it, the fact that they have women in it, the fact that there's any question about, oh my gosh, at some point in Star Wars, there may be somebody who's not a straight white male. And they panic. Those are the people that I'm talking about. And There are more of them than we would feel comfortable acknowledging. There are more of them. Because what happens is, whenever you bring up the fact that there is this significant segment of people who, Star Wars having an Asian girl, a black guy, a female in the lead, trash it, trash it, trash it. Star Wars is attacking the white males. They're trying to commit genocide against white males. These people are mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging, cousin-humping, basement-dwelling fucking losers. Those are the losers. The people out there who just hate The Last Jedi because they didn't think it was well written, they didn't like what they did with the story, blah, 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 blah. Hey, awesome. We're fellow film fans and we can discuss and debate that. That's great. So never make a mistake about who we're referring to, because everybody's allowed to like or not like any movie. All film is subjective. But when you bring your racism and your sexism and your homophobia into the discussion, at that point you cease being a film fan and you're recognized as a mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging, cousin-humping, basement-dwelling fucking loser. And I don't want you watching my channel. Please go away. I'd rather have 10 sane people watching my channel and arguing, debating with me than have a million of you mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging, cousin-humping, basement-dwelling, absolute losers. Because I don't want you here. So I don't care if I make no ad money. I don't care whatever. I don't want you here. You're on the wrong side of history. And 50 years from now, when we're looking back, we're going to be laughing at people like you. The next generation is going to be looking back and laughing at people like you. So anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. Let's see. Der Wunderbar writes, I've heard that Skyscraper is a Die Hard ripoff, and judging by the trailer, I gotta agree. Well, never pass, first of all, Der Wunderbar, never pass judgment on a movie by the trailer. Judge a trailer for the trailer. Judge a trailer. Don't judge a movie based on the trailer. Never do that. And yeah, there were a lot of similarities. You got a definite Die Hard feel from Skyscraper's marketing. You absolutely did. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson even kind of said that this movie's kind of his love letter to movies like Die Hard. Okay, fine. I gotta say though, having watched the movie, and the movie was not great, but having watched the movie, I feel pretty safe in saying the movie is definitely not a Die Hard ripoff. Is the basic setting similar? Yes. Terrorist situation in a high-rise building. Single lone hero. Yes. But there are many, many movies that have very similar initial premises. Once you get beyond that initial premise, this is a very different movie. Very different lead character, very different kinds of action, all that kind of stuff. It is a very different movie. Yeah, on its surface, I fully agree with you. On its surface, it has a Die Hard vibe to it, no doubt about it. But even though I didn't like the movie all that much, when you get into it, I don't think there are many fair criticisms to make about Skyscraper. I do not think one of those fair criticisms, though, is saying it's a Die Hard ripoff. I did find it to be a very unique, very standalone film that once you get beyond the initial base premise of the movie, it takes on a very different life and personality than Die Hard was. So I thought they did a good job on that level. All right, let's see here. Luna Comics writes, I had to stop watching Anchorman because I was afraid I was going to die of laughter. Yeah, we talked about Anchorman the other day. Oh my God, that movie's so funny. It still, to me, is in my top 10 all-time favorite comedies of all time. It ranks very close to the top 2, to the top as well. Like, in the top 2 positions for me are probably always going to be Noises Off and The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Those are probably always going to be my 2 favorite comedies. But in the top 5, not even top 10, Anchorman's in my top 5 favorite comedies. You could fast forward. You can get on Netflix. Fast forward, rewind, fast forward. Just play like roulette with it and stop, hit with your eyes closed and then hit play. And something's going to be happening on screen the moment you hit play that's going to make you laugh. That, Step Brothers. That's the funniest thing. I love Anchorman that much. It's not even my favorite Will Ferrell movie. Step Brothers is my favorite Will Ferrell movie. It doesn't matter how many times I watch it. I'm going to laugh my guts out. I just love those movies. Thanks for sharing that, Luna. All right. Der Wunderbar writes, Akira was my introduction to anime. I think there's a lot of people that was their introduction because it is such a well-known name. It is one of the most well-known anime names outside of the world of anime that I think when a lot of people first dip their toe in, Akira will be one of the things they try out. And it's not for everybody. I mean, the style and the tone of Akira is not, like, I can't sit here and say, I like Akira very much, but I'm not going to sit here and say, you should watch it because I think you're going to like it. Because it's one of those movies that is going to come across to you as great if you have a certain sensibility about movies, but it's not going to work. There's a bunch of people I know that Akira wouldn't work for. And that's fine. That doesn't take away from how great it is. It's just that it's certainly not for everybody. But I find a lot of people I've talked to, Der Wunderbar, when you talk about anime films and the first ones they've watched, Akira is mentioned quite a bit on that list. Luna Comics writes, I haven't heard you answer this because my phone died and the video was deleted. Over under 30%. They announced Man of Steel 2 at Comic-Con. Well, obviously, this was a question that came in before going to Comic-Con, and I've done very little videos since then. But obviously, I would have said under. I would have taken the I would have put the over-under number myself around 10%. 10% I would have been more comfortable with. And the swelling's coming back as I'm talking. But clearly, obviously, they did not. There was no announcement for Man of Steel 2, nothing like that. No discussion about Batman. They decided to focus everything on their existing projects. And I think that was wise. Because Warner Brothers has shot themselves in the foot in years past time with all these different movies, and half of them get scrapped. So they decided to focus on the main focus was on the three big ones. Aquaman, Shazam, Wonder Woman, coming out in that order. And they put all their attention there, and I think that was the right move. I think that was a smart move for them to do. Unfortunately, not surprised that they didn't bring up any kind of plans about either Batman or Superman. Bernard Gayton writes, John, help. Movies Anywhere has made collecting addicting. 8 to 94 movies. But now avoid buying from distributors that don't support. Will this change? Here's the thing. And you're not the only one, Bernard. I've got a couple of people who have written to me that say they like the Movies Anywhere service. I personally don't know anybody that uses it. And when I had one or two people write to me telling me about the service and what it does, I checked it out. To be honest, I saw no reason to use it. And here's why. There's almost like my personal streaming service of choice is the Google Play Store. That's just my streaming service of choice. There's many other good streaming services of choice if you choose to use those. Those are great. There's many other great ones. But for me, the Google Play Store is the one I use, and I'm very, very happy with it. I really can't find much, if anything, on other streaming services that I cannot find on the Google Play Store. When you're talking about the services plugged into Movies Anywhere. And I know Google isn't going anywhere. I know Google isn't going anywhere. Google's not about to go bankrupt tomorrow. Movies Anywhere, they could disappear tomorrow. Now, the basic idea, if I understood it right, with Movies Anywhere is a service where you can plug in your accounts for iTunes, for Amazon Prime, for Google Play, for Vudu, for a couple of other movie streaming services. And you can put in all your credentials just into Movies Anywhere. And you can watch all of your movies from any of those services that you've bought on Movies Anywhere. And all you need is Movies Anywhere. But I've never felt the need because everything I want is on the Google Play Store. So I got everything right there collected perfectly in my Google Play Store. Movies Anywhere, it's kind of like, not nearly as bad, but it's kind of like MoviePass. It could disappear tomorrow. So I'm very happy with that. But hey, it works for you. It's made it kind of fun for you. That's what it's all about. And I'm glad you're using it. I just personally don't see a lot of need to use it. Marvel Diesel writes, Gio, wanted to say your shows mean so much to me. Proud Pittsburgher. I love me some Sidney Crosby, man. I cried so many times watching Mr. Rogers' documentary. You bowed to no one, my friend. Hey, look, if I had a nickel for every time I've had a chance to talk about and rave about Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Mr. Rogers documentary, I'd be a rich man. That movie is outstanding. One of the best films of the year, not just best documentary of the year so far. One of the best movies of the year so far. I'd say it's top 5 of the year so far. It's outstanding. It's incredible. If you have not had a chance to watch Won't You Be My Neighbor, it just doesn't just change the way you think. It changes you. It's a movie that changes you. It's crazy. But seriously, treat yourself, watch Won't You Be My Neighbor. I think you'll be blown away. All right. Next up, Sid Vicious writes, thoughts on Oscar campaign for Revenant during the Oscars. There were many articles about how hard to shoot it. Don't remember Fury Road, Mad Max doing it. Well, there was a lot of outlets that chose to write articles on how difficult it was for Revenant. And make no mistake, shooting Revenant was much more difficult than shooting Mad Max. One of the big differences is, with Mad Max, you see these big action sequences and you know there's a lot that goes into it. Revenant is a guy walking in the forest, right? So you wouldn't think there's all that much to it. When you go into the story, and this is why a lot of trades and like Variety and Hollywood Reporter and things like that, why a lot of these places wrote extensive articles on the experience they had shooting that movie. It was a nightmare. It was a living hell for a lot of the people making that movie. And what they did to achieve what they achieved is crazy. And in that note, it stands out a lot more than, say, like a Mad Max Fury Road, which you can see from the trailers. Oh yeah, a lot of high flipping action, cars moving around. There must be a lot that goes into that. Whereas you get a movie like The Revenant, guy in the woods. How hard could that be? Living nightmare, as it turns out. But a lot of that had to do with not so much the Oscar campaign, but the individual trades and outlets thinking that was an interesting story and choosing to write stories on it. And that's pretty big. I mean, very few visual effects, other than a bear, obviously. Very few visual effects. No lighting. They used all natural light. They actually immersed themselves into the wilderness, like for weeks at a time. It was pretty crazy what they did. But it wasn't really part of the Oscar campaign. So anyway, the big difference, like, yeah, you know there's a whole bunch that goes into making something like Mad Max. You wouldn't think that with Revenant, and then you hear the stories and you're blown away. So I think that's probably has more to do with it than anything else. KW Garrett writes, do you think idea for a human controlling Godzilla was taken from Anne Hathaway movie Colossal? Oh, God. I know you hated Colossal, but a shared cinematic universe? Oh, fuck no. No. Well, first of all, Colossal is a piece of garbage movie. It's awful. But besides that, a shared cinematic universe? No. First of all, Colossal made worldwide, I can't remember the exact number, but it's like $3, $4, or $5 million worldwide total. Not $3, $4, or $5 million on its opening night. Not $3, $4, or $5 million on its opening weekend. It made let's say $4. For argument's sake, let's say made $4 million worldwide. Why would a film franchise like Godzilla want to say it has a shared cinematic universe with a movie that nobody saw, nobody remembers, and nobody cared about? They just wouldn't, right? I mean, just on that basis alone, why would you want to have a shared cinematic universe with something that nobody saw? You create shared cinematic universes because you use each other's popularity to bolster the overall whole. Nobody saw Colossal. Nobody talks about Colossal anymore, and Colossal was a pathetically awful movie. There are some people who like it. That's great. All film is subjective, and if you liked it, awesome. From my point of view, since you're asking me, I thought it was a sack of garbage. I thought it was a terrible movie. And nobody saw it. Just that basis alone, nobody saw it. Kind of like cuts it out of the whole notion of it being at all a shared cinematic universe with Godzilla. No, not at all. 0% chance on that, absolutely. Let's see. Corey Timmons writes, hey, John, watch every day. Love the show. Thank you so much, Corey. My question is, have you seen Animal Kingdom? I love this show. Your thoughts? Nope, never seen it. I don't watch a hell of a lot of TV. There are probably about 7 shows that I watch in total. Out of the 50 high-quality shows that are out there right now, there's about 7 shows that I watch right now. I just don't have a lot of time for TV. So Animal Kingdoms is one I see a lot of ads for. It's one I see a lot of commercials for. I've heard some people talking about it, but it's not one I've ever actually had a chance to watch. But you're not alone. I've had other people, Corey, tell me that they like that show as well. So if you're looking for a new show to check out, a lot of people are recommending to me Animal Kingdom, so you might want to check it out. Jack Reacher writes, Ant-Man and Wasp was only kind of better than okay in my opinion. Mid-credits was the best part. They made Wasp cool, which after hundreds of comics is an accomplishment in my opinion. Well, hey, look, all film's subjective. You thought it was just a little bit better than okay. I thought it was quite good. I thought it was really entertaining. I had a lot of fun with it. I still think I like the first Ant-Man better. I mean, Ant-Man 2 did a few things better than Ant-Man 1 did, but I think overall Ant-Man 1 was the better film. I just liked it a little bit more. But hey, I had no complaints. I walked in, smiled a lot, had a good time, walked out entertained. And that's all I can ask from any movie, really. Let's see. Miles Pardo writes, Skyscraper is made more for China audiences anyway. Well, as of right now, Skyscraper, I wouldn't say it is made for Chinese audience. It's definitely not made more for Chinese audiences than anybody else. If that was the case, the movie wouldn't be in English. If the movie was made more for China than anyone else, they would have made the movie in Chinese. So let's be clear about that. Did they make Skyscraper with the Chinese market in mind? Well, absolutely. That's why the whole movie takes place in Hong Kong. So absolutely there's that consideration. But also let's look at this. The movie right now is still not profitable. It'll cross that line in the next couple of weeks. It'll break even and maybe even make a little bit of money. As of right now, it still hasn't. It's still in the hole. Made about $230 million right now worldwide in total, I think. I think that's where it sits right now. Movie cost about $125 million to make. So that means it needs to make somewhere in the neighborhood of like $310, $315 million to break even and be profitable. But it's interesting to note that the movie, even though there is a big, there is definitely appeal to Chinese audiences, it still made more in US than it did in China. It's not like it made more in China than it did in the US. So clearly the more important market is the American market, even for Skyscraper. Clearly their main target is the North American market. That's why the movie's in English and not in Mandarin. And we've seen that it's made more money in one market than the other. So there's that. Look, Skyscraper is not a horrible movie. It's not. I wasn't all that happy with it, but it's not horrible. And I've talked to some people who've enjoyed it and who liked it, and that's great. And I think there's certainly good elements to it. Just not as fun, not as good as Jumanji, not as fun as Rampage. So yeah, kind of a meh movie that I think you can take or leave. Let's see. Last question of the day comes to us from Trent Doe, who writes, what is your take on the Department of Justice appealing the AT&T Time Warner deal? Both CNN and CNBC are indicating that this has caused Comcast to back off the Fox deal and now shift focus to acquiring Sky. There were a couple, for those of you who have not heard, you remember a few weeks ago, AT&T had their acquisition of Time Warner cleared by the courts. Great. That opened the way for Disney or Comcast to come in and acquire Fox. Less likely there's going to be any legal impediments, blah, 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 blah. Well, then out of nowhere, the Department of Justice has launched an appeal. The Department of Justice is going to still try to stop this merger between AT&T and Time Warner. There is speculation, and for good reason, that was one of the things that made Comcast go, ooh. So even if we put in a bigger bid than Disney at this point, the government is still going after these types of mergers and it may kill us anyway? Okay, let's back off. Now, I think the main reason that Comcast backed off was because the dollar figure was already too high. Disney overpaid for Fox. Disney overpaid. And they ended up paying $20 billion more than they originally thought they were going to have to spend on Fox. Because remember back in December, Disney makes an offer to Fox for $52 billion, and Fox says they're going to accept it. Yay, it's all done. Only it wasn't done. In came Comcast. Ruined the party, and now Disney is going to still end up getting it, but for $20 billion more than they had originally planned on. And at $71.3 billion, which was the final offer that Disney put in, plus secured debts that Fox has, Disney's also going to assume their debts. Disney has overpaid for this company. They have overpaid. And I think Comcast realizing, well, if we're going to put in a bid, it's going to have to be in at least the $78 billion range. Do we want to pay $78 billion for Fox? No. So they backed out. And I do think that this whole court situation with the Department of Justice coming in and saying they're going to appeal the AT&T and Time Warner decision, I think that played into it as well. I think it more had to do with not wanting to overpay, but I do think that was a factor as well. And this, look, Here's the thing. Everybody is saying, oh, it's official now. Disney owns Fox. No, they don't. But John, the Fox shareholders voted and approved. Yes, but it still has a year-long process to clear all the government agencies. This ain't done. Now, I think, if I had to put $5 on it, I think eventually this will be done. I think eventually, a year from now, the final hurdles will be crossed and Disney will own Fox. But with the DOJ coming in and appealing the Time Warner, the AT&T and Time Warner merger, it brings more question marks up. But John, I thought I heard that the government already gave their approval. No. One branch of the government gave provisional approval. That's just a temporary thing. There are other branches that need to also give approval, and even that one branch only gave it its provisional approval. And look, there's still a lot to go. Remember, back in December, before Disney thought Comcast was going to be a player, they said, this deal will probably take about 1.5 years to bring to completion with all the government stuff and all that kind of stuff. Will probably take about 1.5 years. Nothing has changed. So for everybody who's running around, again, this is like the 4th time people are running around saying, oh, it's done, it's now official, when it's not done and official. People have done that so many times throughout this that it's spinning my head. It is not done and it is not official yet. All that has happened now is that Fox has said, yes, we, as the shareholders, will accept this bid from Disney. Okay, so that ends the part with Comcast. Comcast is now out of the picture. Now, they still got to do that whole other big part of it, which is to get it cleared. And with the DOJ challenging the AT&T and Time Warner thing, that brings some more questions marks to do. Again, I still think it's going to go through, and I think a year from now, we're going to be saying it is now official. Disney has acquired Fox. It's done. As of right now, that is not the case. Disney does not now own Fox. Disney does not now control Fox. It's still got to go through a whole hell of a lot of... Remember, the AT&T and Time Warner thing took over a year. That's going to be the case here, so we got to have a little bit of patience. But yes, I do think that the DOJ's challenging of the AT&T and Time Warner ruling did have a part to play. Not the major part, but I think it had a part to play. Okay, guys. That will do it for me for this companion video. Thanks so much for being here. Listen, guys, don't forget, if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, simply @JohnCampia. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me. My name's John Campia, and until next time, bye-bye.